Hello and welcome to today's video. And today, first off, we're going to be taking a look at some welding I've had to complete. Now, there was a previous sill repair on the left-hand side of the car at the rear. Funny enough, where I had to repair the right-hand side. Just looking at the inner sill cavity here, you can see that the inner sill had a little bit of corrosion down at the bottom, but that's been treated and is absolutely fine. This is the panel that was welded on for the MOT, and you can just see me pointing out where it was actually welded over the previous bad material and just slapped on into place, which is absolutely fine for MOT purposes. But if you're doing it properly, you want to cut out all of the bad metal and weld only onto good metal, and that'll give you a much longer lasting repair. So you can see what I've done there. I've ground back to actual bare metal. Um, Gave it a little further clean up after doing this, and then I was able to successfully weld a patch in place. But thankfully, the inner sills are absolutely fine. Afterwards, I actually covered all of this with etched primer and dinitrile the inside of the sill cavities as well, which I've already done, but I've done them again anyway. But yeah, you can see they're all absolutely solid and no problems at all. The rear arch area where it actually meets the sill was also corroded, so I had to cut that out and replace it. For this, I actually had to make up a few templates or a few patch panels there, as you can see, to get those to sort of fit in. But then I covered the area with some Tetrasil and then the rest of it with some dinitrile, which has actually solved the problem and it does look a lot better than it did. Um, I went for really for just for protected and not really visually appealing, but just protected and solid, which is for this particular car all I'm sort of really aiming for. Obviously ground back the welds afterwards just to make it look a bit neater, and yeah, just dinitrile everything else in there as well, so nice and neat and good to go. And obviously did a little bit under there as well with the various cavities. Um, Also applied a bit of de-rusting or rust converter as well, just to make sure that everything was good to go. The next job that I had to do is to replace the driver's side drive shaft because the one that was on there has actually bent. I'm not quite sure how it's bent, but it has. So the first thing that I did was to loosen off the hub nut, which was done up to 195 pound-foot. I then used a 17 mm socket and spanner to loosen off the um, hub carrier to strut bolts, as you can see me doing there. You might also, just to sort of make things easier when you come to remove the drive shaft CV joint out of the hub carrier itself, actually remove the brake hose. So where it's held on to the upright, just pop the clip out and then you can put the brake hose out of the way, which means you get a lot more movement on the hub itself. The alternative approach to this is to undo the bottom ball joint and do it that way, which could actually be slightly better because you might get a bit more leverage on it. But to be honest with you, this way meant I didn't have to undo that lower ball joint, which is good. Now that's the drive shaft out and ready to sort of pop out completely. Now you can see it there, supported on the jack, and I left it supported there whilst I did the actual rest of the job. The drive shaft is in the gearbox and it's held in with basically with a circlip. Now you will need to put something under there to catch any gear oil that comes out, any sort of differential oil. But I found that you can see there's got the engine mount and you've got a bucket in front of the gearbox with just a very small hole, um, which you can just about get something in there to sort of tap out the drive shaft. So what I did was I got something in there, as you can see, the pry bar, and then using a lump hammer, basically tap the drive shaft out and keep tapping until the circlip on the drive shaft itself releases itself from the gearbox. So you can see here, I've taken a photo of the drive shaft. You've got that sort of collar on the end of it, and then you've got the part of the drive shaft that goes into the gearbox. What you want to try to do is to tap this sort of area, which I was just pointing at with the arrow there, and just tap it repeatedly until the drive shaft releases and actually comes out of the gearbox. What you can also do if you don't really want to use the drive shaft is actually tap it on the CV boot itself. You'll destroy the boot, but that will actually sort of get the whole drive shaft out. That's the new drive shaft that's going in. And to be honest with you, I didn't film it in because it just went straight in. There was a nice satisfying click and in it went. What I did do though before putting it in was to grease the splines where it goes into the gearbox. Actually grease the drive shaft itself and then pop it into the gearbox. The next thing I did was to actually drain the gearbox oil. You will need some of these sort of quite big quartz drives in order to undo both bolts on the gearbox, both the fill bolt and the drain bolt. Now, a couple of days beforehand, I saturated these with some Innertech D block. You can also use plus gas as well, which is quite good. And I undid them and then did them back up again just to make sure that they actually did move. And what I'm doing here is just getting under there. That one's the fill bolt that you can see there. And then just getting in there and loosening off that fill bolt. And we'll be using that to fill the gearbox a little bit later on. I think it takes around 2 litres of, I want to say SAE 80 grade differential oil, gearbox oil, to actually fill the gearbox. And that's pretty much all you need in there. So I managed to get this bolt undone, the bolt out, and then I went to actually undo the bolt on the other side, so the actual drain bolt, which you can see me going for there. Make sure that you've got something underneath to catch the oil because it will come out pretty quickly, and there is an awful lot on there, or rather an awful lot in there that comes out quite quickly. You lose about lose probably about a quarter of a litre when you take the drive shaft out, and you lose everything obviously when you undo the large drain bolt on the bottom of the gearbox. So you can see there I'm just undoing it now, and in a moment absolutely everything will come out of the gearbox, and I'll be ready to fill it. Now what I did do when filling it was I used my electric oil drain. So I put that into the bottle that you can see perched on top of the battery, and then just ran that for about half an hour or so to fill the transmission. That also gave me the opportunity to do a few other jobs around the car, changing the oil and filter, and a few other little bits and pieces that I had to do. But yeah, that was pretty much it, and that's pretty much all that you need to do in order to renew the drive shaft. Now, a couple of things that you need to bear in mind is torque figures. So torque figures are, if we take a look in Haynes manual, which I'm just looking at here, the hub to, actually I've got them written down here. The hub carrier to strut is 92 pound-foot, and those are those two 17mm bolts. The hub nut is 195 pound-foot, and the wheel nuts are 92 pound-foot. Anyway, that concludes this video. Thank you very much for watching.